Ruth, a 22-year-old young bread seller, was about to cross the busy road in Victoria Island. Her tray of bread balanced on her head as she stepped forward carefully, her tired eyes scanning the street. Without warning, a black G-Wagon screeched to a stop right in front of her. "Are you blind?" the man inside shouted as he jumped out of the car, anger flashing in his eyes. "I'm sorry, sir," Ruth said quickly, stepping back, fear creeping into her voice. Before she could even respond, the man raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. Her tray fell. Bread scattered on the road. Cars honked. People stared. Ruth held her cheek, her whole body trembling, tears already welling up in her eyes. The man hissed, entered his car, and drove off like nothing had happened, leaving Ruth standing there, stunned and hurt. Her cheek burned from the slap, and her hands shook as she bent down to pick up the fallen bread. Some had rolled into the gutter, others were stepped on by rushing feet. People walked by, paying no attention. No one stopped to help. Tears silently slipped down Ruth's face as she wiped them away with the back of her hand, but more came. She couldn't stop crying. She sat on the roadside, hugging her broken tray, whispering to herself, "Why am I so poor? Why is my life like this?" She glanced at the bread on the ground and shook her head. If I was rich, if I had a car like that man, would he have slapped me? She blamed herself. She blamed her poverty. She blamed her father for dying. She blamed her mother's sickness. She even blamed the heavy bread tray. Everything felt wrong, everything felt unfair. People continued walking past her like she wasn't there, like she was invisible. "I'm tired," Ruth said in a quiet voice. "So tired." But despite the overwhelming exhaustion, she picked up the rest of her bread and stood again, slowly, painfully, because she knew her brothers were waiting for her at home. And her sick mother hadn't eaten since yesterday. As the man drove away, something unusual began to trouble his mind. He couldn't shake Ruth's face from his thoughts. Not the dirt on her dress, not the scattered bread, but her eyes. The sadness in them. The silence. The pain. He shook his head, trying to forget, but her face kept coming back, uninvited. That night, he tossed and turned in his large bed, inside his mansion, surrounded by gold and glass. Everything was perfect, except he felt empty. He couldn't stop thinking about Ruth, about how she hadn't insulted him, how she just picked up the bread in silence, how her cheek had looked the next day, swollen from his slap. "Why can't I stop thinking about her?" he whispered aloud, confused. The next morning, he found himself in his car, driving around aimlessly, as if searching for something he couldn't understand. And then, by chance, he saw her again, Ruth, standing under the harsh sun with her tray of fresh bread. She was trying to sell to a bus driver, but the man just waved her away, not even giving her a second glance. Ruth looked tired, but she was still pushing, still trying, still surviving. Something stirred deep inside him. He parked his car nearby, keeping his distance, and watched her. His heart began to race. The more he looked, the more he realized something he had never felt before. "She's different," he whispered, almost to himself. Right there, the rich, proud man who had slapped a poor girl in public began to fall in love with her, the bread seller with tired eyes and quiet strength. The next day, Ruth was again standing on the corner, calling out, "Fresh bread! Hot bread!" Her voice was tired, but she kept shouting, still fighting. She didn't notice the black G-Wagon parked nearby, quietly waiting. The door opened. It was him, the same man who had slapped her the day before. Ruth's heart began to race. She turned away quickly, not wanting any trouble, not wanting to see his face again. But he walked up to her slowly, his voice soft. "Please wait. I just want to talk." Ruth didn't say a word, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'm sorry for what I did," he said gently. "I was angry. I was foolish." Ruth looked at him with cold eyes, her lips tight. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I came to see you. I couldn't stop thinking about you." She frowned, a mix of anger and confusion in her eyes. "Why are you here?" she asked quietly, her voice laced with suspicion. "Because I think I'm falling in love with you," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Ruth froze, her mouth opening in shock. "You slapped me like a dog. You made me cry in front of everyone, and now you say you love me." "I regret it," he said, his eyes pleading. "Every second of it. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, let me show you that I care." Ruth shook her head. "I'm just a poor girl selling bread. You're rich. Why would you love someone like me?" He smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "Because even with all your pain, you held your head high. That strength. It touched me." Ruth looked away, her heart in turmoil. She didn't know if she could trust him, not after everything that had happened. But he stayed there, not leaving, his voice soft. "Please, Ruth, don't push me away." She stood silently, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at the tray of bread on the ground, then back at him. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," he said, his tone full of honesty. "But I want to make things right. Not with money, but with love, with care. Please, Ruth." Ruth's eyes filled with soft tears. This time, they weren't of pain, but of confusion, of something new, something she didn't understand. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. "I'll give you a chance," she said softly, "but don't hurt me again." The man's face went still with shock, and then a deep sorrow washed over him. He stepped closer, gently touching her hand, and when his eyes met hers, they froze. He saw the scar on her cheek where he had slapped her, and his chest tightened with guilt. "I did this to you," he whispered, his voice thick with regret. "I'll never forgive myself for this, Ruth. Never." Ruth looked at him, her heart softening, though the pain was still fresh in her memory. He took her hand firmly in his. "I promise," he said, his voice steady. "From today, I will spend the rest of my life making up for every tear I caused you." And for the first time, Ruth didn't feel like a poor bread seller. She felt like someone who was finally seen, finally loved. Subscribe to this YouTube channel for more interesting stories.